This video is brought to you by Kempower, the reliable, quick, and scalable EV charging solution for everyone and everywhere. And this video is also brought to you by StarCharge, the largest EV charging manufacturer in the world. They are also a provider of residential and commercial battery storage with microgrid solutions. Hello, good evening, and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video and a 10% challenge video in the highly anticipated Kia EV9. The 10% challenge, what the heck is that? This is the only test we could come up with to prove how fast an electric car is on a road trip. Of course, we always want to know how far they go on a single charge. That video has already been posted. We want to know how fast they'll charge from 0 to 100%. We'll post that one next. But those aren't really real-world applications. What is a real-world application where charging speeds and efficiency and range all come together is when you're hopping from charger to charger on a long road trip. Now, this is built on the eGMP platform, this Kia EV9, and those vehicles, Ioniq 5, EV6, GV60, are some of the fastest road-tripping electric vehicles in the land. Will this one with the big 100 kilowatt-hour battery pack do better? Well, there's a lot of explaining to do and a lot of testing to do, so let's get into that. And here it is. This is sort of our top spec EV9 GT line from actually our local Fort Collins Kia dealership here in the northern Colorado area. They're so cool to lend me this vehicle to do all of the testing needed. They first lent us an EV9 GT line with every option available for like a full tour video. And I was like, you know what? I really want to do range and all this stuff. And they're like, no worries. We have another one. Take this, go do a range test, go do a charging test, go do whatever you got to do. And that's what we're doing. And it's cold. This is a cold weather 10% challenge, and it is nighttime, but that's because we are going to be running 80 miles per hour, really simulating a road trip like we do with every electric car we can. So, okay, before we get into testing procedures, EV9, I have a bunch of videos on this vehicle on this channel, so make sure you check it out. You can see the lights in the bumper here, super sick. That's actually only available in the gloss paint options. If you choose the matte paint options, you can't get that. And I just found out you can actually change the light pattern and the startup sequence with sort of a over-the-air update. I'm not sure if it's paid or free, but it looked like you had to actually pay for them, and that's kind of lame, to be honest. God damn it. If you want different lights on your Kia, it's really cool. It lights up through the grille. It's only available in the gloss paints that do this. You have to freaking buy to purchase additional products if you want to change the lights. This function on demand stuff is going too far. Let me just show you what I'm talking about up here. The lights in the grille. I mean, it's pretty sick. It literally looks like paint during the day, and then you get lights like this. No lights as pretty as those, though. Texas Roadhouse. But anyway, that's really the only lame thing about this vehicle because it's freaking awesome. So it's cold out here. Let me sit inside. I'll run through the specs with you. I've got the battery nice and toasty so that we'll get the most accurate results. I'll explain all of it. We'll plug it in and we'll run the... Well, you joined me in the EV9 at the Electrify America charging station here in Loveland, Colorado. We're currently at 11% state of charge, just draining it down to 10, and I have the battery at the perfect temperature. I'll walk you through that in a moment. A little bit about this vehicle. The price on the one as tested is about 75 grand. Seems expensive. It is, but you get a lot for your money. You get a huge 3-row electric SUV with heated, cooled massage seats, heated and cooled second row, nice glass roof, like so many cool things, great driver assistance. And honestly, it's a vehicle that matches, as we found in the range test, matches its EPA highway range in the wintertime. I think we got 266 miles. It's rated for 270, and we did it in almost freezing temperatures. So that's pretty good. In the summertime, you should be able to match EPA pretty easily. That's a great sign. Okay, 100 kilowatt hour battery pack here. I think I used just about 99 kilowatt hours, even a bit more than that in our range test. So almost 100 kilowatt hour usable. And the weird thing is the voltage. There are 2 battery packs available in EV9, but pretty much everyone's just going to get one of those battery packs. And the one battery pack that they're all going to get is the big 99.8 kilowatt hour battery pack. There's also a 76 one 76 point something kilowatt hour pack, which is very similar to like the Ioniq 5 GV60 EV6 battery pack. That has like a 600 and something nominal voltage, 630, 640, which seems reasonable. This is like 550 volts on the big battery. So it's a lower voltage battery. And we're going to talk a little bit about that because that actually affects the charging speeds on this particular one. And I'm going to get nerdy as we dig into this, but maybe you guys will understand. It means that it may not do as well as the other eGMP vehicles. Right off the bat, the peak charging speeds that Kia tells us is 210 kilowatts on this one, which matches Rivian R1S, less than Model X, which can do 250 kilowatts. So it's not the fastest charging three-row SUV, but it's all about the curve, and that's what this test will show. How long can it hold it for? We're certainly going to find that out together. Just checking on the temperatures, making sure they're still good. So let me walk you through the procedures. By the way, should also mention a few other things about this. It uses a dual permanent magnet motor system. This is the all-wheel drive GT-Line on 21-inch wheels. This is the thirstiest one. It's the most expensive one, and it's the least efficient EV9. So every EV9 will do better in this test than this particular one. And keep in mind, it's 32 degrees Fahrenheit outside, 0 degrees Celsius. It's a cold weather 10% challenge test. It shouldn't affect the charging, but it might affect a little bit of air density while cruising. Nears makes no difference. We're pretty close. And the car is broken in, has almost 500 miles on it now, so we're ready to do some real hardcore testing. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's go through some numbers. We are currently at 11% state of charge, draining it down to 10%, which is we plug in as soon as it dips from 11% user indicated to 10. Now this number on the left right here, this is the user indicated state of charge, 11. That will match up perfectly with what you see on the dash right there. The number to the right of it, SOC BMS, that's actually the main battery pack. And so there's a bit of a buffer below zero, and I drained that out to where the car pretty much died, where it showed 1% BMS in that range test. So we really used everything out of it, which was crazy. I want to go quick because it looks like we're about to drop to 10% here. You can see the battery voltage is wild. It's pretty low, 500 volts, and anything below 10%, you're in the high 400s when you get down to the bottom of the pack. Which we'll talk about a lot in the charging portion. But right now, I also want to mention the maximum current that this vehicle can accept, or that it will request, is 340 amps. What's up with that? And what does that have to do with the voltage? Well, that dictates our charging curve, which isn't actually going to be as good as Ioniq 5 EV6. The curve might be, but the initial state of charge may not be. Let's talk about what that means for the 10% challenge. Essentially, when we plug in this vehicle, unlike the other vehicles that shoot, I'm talking Ioniq 5 EV6, even the small battery one of these that shoot up to 235, 240 kilowatts right off the bat, this is only going to charge at around 200 kilowatts and then walk its way up as the voltage comes up. Now, we'll see how long it can hold that 340 amps, or technically the 210 kilowatts. I haven't really charged it much yet to find out, but this is going to be the real curious thing. Because if Rivian can do 210 kilowatts, if Tesla can do more, we both know those vehicles, well, the Rivian especially doesn't have amazing thermal management after multiple stops, has to keep cooling itself down, and it's a 400 volt system architecture and runs a lot of current. I'm hoping that the EV9 will win on charging, and time will tell. Interestingly, I have the battery pack temperature, like I mentioned, at the correct temperatures. You'll notice it shows 21 degrees Celsius on the coldest, 28 on the warmest. The coldest cell dictates cold weather charging. And if you're below 20 degrees Celsius on the coldest battery pack cell, it really limits your charging. But as soon as it hits 20 degrees C, bam, you're good to go. This vehicle does support battery preconditioning, and there's a manual preconditioning button I'll show you, and you can precondition down to 10% in this one versus 20% in the other eGMP cars. So they're learning, they're opening it up. They're letting us use more of the vehicle, which I'm a huge fan of. So essentially what we're going to do testing procedures wise, plug in at 10%, charge for 15 minutes on the nose. Once we hit 15 minutes of charging, we're going to unplug like we do with every vehicle, see how many kilowatt hours we add, all that good stuff. And then we're going to jump right on the highway, go 80 miles per hour. 80 miles per hour indicated is GPS 80. We'll go out about halfway, turn around, end about, here back at around 10% on the highway, still driving. And when we make our loop to turn around, if the battery cools down, we'll precondition back to the charger, because that's what you would do on a road trip in cold weather, and that's what we're trying to simulate. Enough data, let's get to charging. Let's let this thing hit 10%. You guys know the drill, then we'll hit the road. It's, what is it, 11:30 p.m.? It's gonna be a long night testing this thing. And just like that, we are down to 10% state of charge. So I'm going to shut off the car completely. No more loads on it. We're gonna plug it in, and once it's plugged in, we're gonna set the climate control on the inside of the car to 68 degrees or so. We always run this test with climate control. So tire pressures are of course set from our testing earlier today. All is good. So let's plug it in. Let's get juice it for 15 minutes. I'll set the timer and see how many kilowatt hours we can add in 15 minutes. I'm just as curious as you guys, because I'm expecting this to do really well. But again, this test will show it. I've already made sure the charger can rip. It's all good. I've used this charger today already with this vehicle. Should be ready to rock and roll. In we go. I'll tap my card and we'll go. Okay, I've connected. We are good to go. We can add about 10 seconds or so onto this clip to when it starts charging. So I don't think it has started yet. Usually the Kia will say charging started, and you can actually turn off this little voice, which is great. Contactors are going. Yeah, so come on, baby, let's go. And are we good? Charging started. There we go. It was about a 36-second handshake time, and now we will rely on this counter to go 15 minutes. So let's run inside. Let's take a look at car scanner. By the way, I'm just using an OBD adapter to just a basic car scanner app. It's a VP OBD adapter, very basic stuff, but it works for all the eGMP cars and a few others as well, like my eGolf and et cetera, et cetera. So one thing we need to do is we need to make sure we have cabin climate on. So let's turn the car on. Headlights off so we don't draw attention to ourselves. By the way, the climate screen in this one broke itself. It's not completely bad because you can actually still touch it and interact with it. But I'm going to run driver only just because I know where the buttons are. You can also use this main screen if this one dies. But I just think it's a little bit buggy that this one has stopped working. I really don't know why. Set the climate to 70 degrees. And we are ramping up. We're up to 160 kilowatts already. 20 degrees Celsius is the coldest the battery can be to accept full speeds. Already up to 12% now. And you can see the maximum the vehicle wants is about 340.5 amps. That's its target current. And you can see it's getting just plus or minus right around there. That's only 197 kilowatts into the port and 191 into the battery. And of course, as the pack voltage comes up, so will the charging speed. So this will be above 200 kilowatts in no time. And I'll, of course, keep you updated. But if you're really curious about the charging performance, stay tuned because I'll have a full deep dive coming in a feature episode. You can see we're just about 3 minutes into our charging session, something like that. And we're just above 200 kilowatts. Pack voltage sitting nicely at 570 volts. It's a very weird voltage operating range for this one. It's about 470 dead and 630-ish full, something like that, plus or minus. And yeah, it's just doing 340 amps, which is exactly what the request is. Now, what I would have loved to see was actually a higher amperage request from the EV9. Since they lowered the voltage so much on this battery, they should have raised the amperage request and put in some beefier cables. My guess is this is a cabling limitation, either of the inlet port or the wires that lead to the battery pack, because under regen, this can do 270 kilowatt regen, more than Taycan. It's crazy how much energy this thing can regen. But at least the charging performance right now is looking, I don't want to say lackluster, but it doesn't seem to have the magic so far of Ioniq 5 EV6 or even the small battery version of the EV9. So let's hope it can hold this power for a while and really add some energy, and then we'll see how far we can go at 80 miles an hour. And you can see we are now coming up to 207, 208. There's 210 briefly for a moment. We are at 41% state of charge. We've been charging for exactly 10 minutes now. You can see battery temperature is climbing as expected. Everything's looking good. It's just sitting at 340 amps as pack voltage is coming up. So is our charging performance, and it's just, again, 207 to 210. What's going into the battery is this number here, but of course we're running heater and some other things which is why we run climate control for this test, so it's even. And just another 5 minutes and we'll be ready to unplug. We'll see if it can keep holding full power. That'd be pretty impressive. Here we are now at 50% state of charge. We are 12 minutes into our session, 215 kilowatts now. No sign of slowing down. Pretty impressive. I just charged the Rivian Max Pack. That was about 130 kilowatts at 50%. The Model X will do about 150, 155 kilowatts around there. And this thing is still sending it, no sign of tapering yet. Cooling is on. I hear the chiller running at the moment, but all is looking good. You can see 24 degrees Celsius going into the battery pack, but it's still getting 340 amps, everything it wants. We're about to unplug here in 2 minutes. Will it just keep going? Will it taper? This is pretty impressive. There, right there, just tapered at 54%. But only down to 54 to 200 kilowatts. It's doing 316 amps right now. We are getting ready to unplug, so it pretty much sits flat out for 15 minutes, starting at 10%, which is pretty damn good. As soon as this thing hits 15 minutes, we have to stop charging. But look at this, still ripping 200 kilowatts. Absolutely love to see this. This is a car that you really don't necessarily need to get to a charger dead, and it might even be in your benefit to get there at 15, 20% to get even a little bit higher speeds. There's not much benefit getting there at 0 in this one because you are amperage limited. So, okay, we should be getting close. 14 minutes. As soon as that hits 15, we have to hit stop. Come on, baby. Let's go. Wow, 49 kilowatt hours in 15 minutes is, not class leading. It's not Taycan. It's not anything like that. 15 minutes, stop. It's, but it is pretty damn good. 49.4 kilowatt hours in 15 minutes. Wow, definitely awesome. Before we get going, I don't want to waste any energy. Let's shut off the car so we don't burn anything. There we go. Now we can get all ready to head out on the road. Close this. Nice little flap here, by the way, compared to the EV6 dangly thing. And you just push this little button and the port will close. So, wow. I can't wait to see how far we go at 80, especially in the cold. This will be really interesting because this is kind of a worst case road trip scenario. Anyway, I'm letting the heat out of the car. Let's jump in. Let's go. Okay, I've just reset the system. Let's start this thing up. No heated seats, nothing like that. We are going to run eco mode, which should run primarily rear wheel drive. We're going to go, 70 degrees on auto. Let's just pull up the climate menu, auto and driver only, which again is, we always run it this way. Let's put it into drive. That's neutral. Come on, drive. All right, we're not going to run iPedal because we want it to stay rear wheel drive as much as possible. And off we go on the highway. We are charged up to 57%, 140 miles of guessometer range. But again, that is based on previous driving. So, man, that was a great charging curve, no matter which way you look at it. I can't wait to see what it does in the full 0 to 100. And I'll be doing that test after this one to see that full charging performance. I'm expecting good things here from the Kia EV9. So let's bump out onto the highway and cruise. And here we are merging onto the highway I-25 North, where we are going to set the cruise control at 80 miles per hour and blast. I'm not even sure how far. This is going to go pretty far, I think, in this test. Blast up the highway for a bit, and then we will come on down afterwards. But yeah, let's get up to 80 GPS, set the highway drive assistant, and settle into a good road tripping pace. This is, no question. I can already tell you right now, this car is going to do well, and it's going to be a great road tripper for families. No huge peak speeds, but it holds it for a while. Even with that weird current limitation, it's not the end of the world. So there's 70 miles an hour. Let's get back up to speed. Let's go 80. I just don't want the front motor to engage. So there's 75. We keep climbing. 76, 77, 78, 79. 80 miles an hour now. Locked in. We'll set steering. We are on highway drive assist. It will do automatic lane changes. Has a capacitive steering wheel. And it'll be a great cruiser for the next, I don't know, hour and a half, however long it goes. Could be interesting. Things are going well here in the EV9. We're just underway, cruising along, and yep, not much to report on. Since I've never done one really like this, where I've done a range test. I took it to do a charging test at a Magic Dock, and now I'm cramming this one in, and then I got to do a charge. It's like everything all in one day. It's a lot of driving in the EV9, but I got to tell you, these seats are crazy comfortable. The noise performance of the car is more than acceptable. It's very quiet in here. The ride quality is great. It's a little soft on the rear axle and maybe a little slightly disconnected with that air suspension, more than I would expect, but I kind of like it because it's very soft and squishy. But yeah, I'd be curious to see what the non-GT line is like, where you don't get the air shocks in the back, the self-leveling system. I'm sure I'll drive one at some point. And yeah, cruising along, 80 miles an hour, all is good. Man, this is one hell of a road tripper. Good sound system, great driver assistance, truly great driver assistance. It barely asks you to touch the wheel, and when it does, you just touch it lightly and you're good to go. It's like the opposite of autopilot now, that dings at you every time you sneeze, it shuts off. Now it's pretty dialed in, it's pretty good. Whoa, what the heck? We are crossing into Wyoming on this test? This thing is going far, okay? We're at 35%. We should turn around roughly now, but we do lose elevation on the way down. Again, it's always a climb on the way up slightly, and then we lose it on the way back. So I think we'll take the first exit on the way in by the Welcome Center, flip around, and head back. And here we are taking Terry Ranch Road. I guess it's one short of the Welcome Center. Although, can we flip on the highway going the other way here? I think the answer is yes. Let's see. Yeah, looks like it. I don't think I've ever actually flipped around at this exit. Maybe I have maybe I have once before. And I thought the same thing. Are we able to flip around here? The answer is yes, we are. Good stuff. Well, back to Colorado we go. We're at 34% state of charge. I'm going to see if we need to battery precondition since we've made it about halfway, and I'll show you how easy that is to do it. I doubt we will. I bet the battery's still warm. Let's see. We'll click this one. Actually, no, we do have to precondition. Activate the boom manual preconditioning on. We always do that because that's roughly, to simulate on a road trip. You want to make sure your battery's warm. And with these vehicles, they really need to be warm in order to charge properly. So I've activated battery. Wow, I'm surprised at how quickly it cooled off. But I've activated preconditioning, we're good. And back we go to Wellington on the downhill this time. So we'll get it back up to 80 miles an hour. And we are locked in at 80. And there's actually even like a little driver assistance menu thing like this. Shows you, I don't know, lanes, cars, stuff like that. Nothing too fancy though. You can see we are cruising back, and 4.2 kilowatts or so are being used for battery care. That's all the battery heating. I really like this manual battery preconditioning because I still think the maps in this car aren't perfect. So I think a lot of you are going to be using a better route planning app, or Apple Maps, or Android Auto, which are both wireless, CarPlay and Android Auto in this one. And so having the ability to heat up the battery pack without manually selecting a charger is really nice. And for the fact that it preconditions down to 10% is much nicer than the other cars preconditioning just to 20, but I still think it should precondition to about 5%. That would be more reasonable in my eyes. And a message just popped up that said battery preconditioning complete. You can see it's at a suitable temperature, and I believe that means it's just brought the coldest cell up to 20 degrees, but let's take a look. 21 in this case, okay. And it's really evened out between the min and the max, which is pretty good as well. So what I'll do is, if the battery gets low again, I'll reactivate battery preconditioning, because I feel like that's how you would use it on a road trip. Just make sure the battery stays warm on the way to the charger. And yeah, it's not maybe the most efficient, but it is a representative test, and that's what a cold weather 10% challenge will do. It's about -1 degree Celsius, 30 degrees Fahrenheit, and we are cruising along. And we are coming across from where we started. We are at 14%, so I think we timed it pretty well. I'll go down a little bit, turn around, and come up. By the time we do that, we should be back to 10. The battery preconditioning, it did go down to low. I re-preconditioned once, So far we've done 2 cycles of preconditioning. I wish there was a way to just maintain battery temperature, but you do have to keep an eye on it and click it every time. Seems slightly inefficient to just let it get cold, warm, but I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. Certainly better than previous EGMP stuff. And all is good. We're at 13%, cruising along still at 80. Man, this thing, we hit 100 miles. 100 miles is really the benchmark for a great road tripping vehicle. You know, Taycan did, 140 miles, something like that. Lucid did a little bit better, 140, I forget exactly the numbers, but a couple miles better than Taycan. Lucid is still the top. Taycan is in second place. Model Y did, I think, 98 miles, something like that. So this is on par to match Model Y, which has a much higher peak charging speed of 250 kilowatts, but this had that great curve that held it. And this is a much bigger vehicle than Model Y and less efficient, of course. It's a freaking brick. It does have a coefficient of drag of 0.28, which is pretty good, but yeah. Let's flip around here and go north, and we'll cruise at, do the 80 mile an hour thing. So let's flip here. We are now headed back in the other direction. This is where we first got on the highway, and we are at 11% state of charge. So let's see what happens. Should dip down to 10 here any moment. I don't think we're gonna see 100 miles, but damn, we're gonna be right on par with some really good results here. And for sure, I think this is probably the only 3-row SUV we've tested. Is that correct? I don't know. I'll have to go back through the data and check everything with Ryan, but yeah, definitely could be the longest one. If it's the only one we've tested, this is the longest range 3-row. Boom, 10%, 94.1 miles, 2 miles per kilowatt hour. Keep in mind, 28 degrees. It's a cold weather one, and we are down to 10% state of charge. So let's head back to the charger. I'll let you know my final thoughts on this, but dang, this thing is definitely a certified road tripper, I'd say. That is more than acceptable considering this is the least efficient EV9 and it's cold outside. Well, there you guys go, the 10% challenge in the Kia EV9. We have a charging testing video coming soon, and then eventually I'll have one back to do comparisons against competition like the Tesla Model X, which I actually just ran out of time with this car to do any of those R1S Model X comparisons, but I promise I'll get to them soon, probably within 2 or 3 weeks. I'm actually off to go do some Cybertruck testing, which should be pretty freaking epic. So, you know, just 100 miles for me in a 10% challenge is really the benchmark for a great road tripper. I'd say 70 miles in this test is acceptable. 100 is fantastic. That is when you start getting into, you know, Model S territory, you start getting into Taycan, Lucid territory, or blow away the 100 miles. And for a 3-row SUV where you're going to have your family on a trip and you're going to do things at a charger, having a great charging curve like this one has truly will make road trips fantastic in the EV9. I wish that it was a higher voltage. I wish it charged, you know, again at that 250, 300 kilowatt rate like I was expecting the bigger battery of EGMP to do. But I think it's going to be more than acceptable for a road trip and certainly passes the 10% challenge. So I can't thank you enough for watching this video. Let me know if you like this test. We've run a bunch of cars. We have all of the data, by the way, in a spreadsheet form and interactive, about to launch very soon. So stay tuned for that. That'll happen within the next week or two, where you'll have a visual representation. You can select all the cars and compare them from our tests. Thanks for watching. Happy New Year. See you in another one again soon. Bye-bye.